Hello, fellow investors. Welcome to Ritter on Real Estate, where we focus on how to passively invest like a pro. I'm your host, Kent Ritter, and today my guest is Lloyd Edge. Lloyd is an investor and author of the book Positively Geared, which he wrote about his journey from teacher to building a multi-million-dollar property portfolio and achieving financial independence. And Lloyd is joining us from all the way on the other side of the world, from Sydney, Australia. So very excited you can be here, Lloyd. I think it's such a cool part of this medium, these podcasts, that we can reach out and talk to like-minded people, not only in our neighborhood, but all the way across the world. And it shows that there's folks all over that are looking to achieve their financial independence, right? So excited to hear your inspiring story today and talk a little bit about how you got there. So thanks, Lloyd, for being here. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, Ken. It's really great to be with you, and really been looking forward to this. So a little bit about myself. I mean, obviously these days I have a very large property portfolio, which is completely passive income, which basically allows me to live life on my own terms. It allowed me to sort of quit my full-time job and things like that a few years ago. But going back a few years, I was a teacher. And didn't really have any real goals beyond that. And I was concerned that I wasn't going to have the financial stability when I got older and when I wanted to sort of have a family and things. And when it came to retirement and having things like the pension that we have over here and superannuation and stuff like that, I didn't think was going to set me up very well. So I decided I need to sort of start venturing into some kind of investments. For me, that was property. I found property was something that was more tangible and less volatile than some other forms, such as shares and things. So I really got into to property investing. But for me, it was quite interesting because when I first started investing, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just sort of going out there and buying a property and then buying another property, and then sort of wondered why I was in lots of debt and not earning lots of cash flow at the time. I thought there must be a better way of doing that. And it wasn't until a little bit later on that I really started to set myself a strategy and some goals. And it was really when I set myself some goals of what I really wanted to achieve, and then work out how I was going to get there and change the type of properties that I was going to buy, that actually allowed me then to achieve that passive income, which then allowed me to quit my teaching job and then essentially be just doing property as my full-time venture these days.
That's incredible. I love the story, how you kind of took hold of your future, recognized you weren't going in the direction that you were hoping to be in as you're looking down the road, and you made a shift, right? And I'm sure that shift took incredible mindset, right? To be able to take that leap. I'm sure it also took an incredible amount of education. There's a couple of things that we'll dig into today. I'd love to hear more about it, but talk to me about, you gave us some insight that you were, you didn't see you were going in the direction you wanted to go, but what was the moment that really prompted you to say, I need to make this shift here?
So I think there was probably a couple of moments there, but it was really when I was working as a music teacher. And, the work was not, I wasn't employed full time. So I was working as a casual, and the work wasn't particularly reliable, wasn't consistent and things like that. So that's kind of thought I need to set myself up to be a little bit more stable in the future. So, not a lot of income and not very consistent income. But I also, sort of got to the stage where I also realized that even people who have full-time jobs, that's not particularly secure. And we've actually seen that in the very current climate where the world's going through this pandemic, that full-time jobs aren't that secure. And that's actually what I was feeling like, many years ago. And that's when I really decided that I needed to take hold of my own finances, because I think that for you to really get ahead, you actually need to take control of things, make money work for you rather than you working for money. And it just dawned on me that you shouldn't be having to sort of work an hourly rate for a boss, working the 9 to 5, as we call it over here, every day. But I really wanted to, try to create something that would actually be a little bit bigger than just that job. Because you work your job, I wasn't finding it that particularly rewarding and things like that. And I really just wanted to create a better future for myself, because I knew that in the future I'd have a family and things like that. So I wanted to start building something for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what does financial independence mean to you?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because financial independence, I think, means different things to different people. So for
Mhm.
me, it's certainly allowed freedom. So it's not just about the financial side of things, but it's also about lifestyle choices. And so I sort of talk about financial freedom and lifestyle choices. So for me, and I'll just give you an example, when my wife was having our first child, and she had to make the doctor's appointments and stuff like that during the day. I could go and attend all those appointments with her without having to ask my boss or anything for time off, because I wasn't working for a boss essentially. So I had had the choices to be able to do things like that. So essentially, it means being able to spend time doing what I want when I want to do it and things like that. Financial freedom for me. It also meant buying a dream home. So having built up a portfolio over the years, that we now own the home that we want, which is a nice dream home on the water over here in Sydney. But obviously a dream home means different things to different people. But it also I think essentially means not worrying about where your money's going to come from. Not worrying about how you're going to put food on the table, or even if things happen like we've seen in that coronavirus pandemic, not worrying about how you're going to pay bills in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, and whatever happens. Just having yourself set up so you're not really worrying about things. And I call that the sleep at night factor, essentially. So it's financial freedom there, lifestyle choices, and it allows me to do other things as well. Spend time sort of donating to charity and those kind of things that I guess in a sense lead to a more fulfilling life than just working essentially.
Yeah, I think those are some great points. Financial independence doesn't mean that you have to be driving around in a Maserati, right? I think the freedom of time and the peace of mind are huge, right? And the
Yeah, no,
ability to pursue what you'd want. Because I think if everyone was pursuing something that they're passionate about, I think the world would be in a much better place, right? You could do a lot
yeah,
more good.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really, really important that you do something that you're very passionate about. And I think when I first started teaching, I was quite passionate about it. I got to the stage, and it's probably getting back to your question before, one of the driving points for me is I started to lose my passion. And it wasn't so much the passion for the teaching itself as much as it was for perhaps the politics within the school system that we have here and things like that. But I was definitely losing my passion. And you don't want to, I remember when I thought to myself, I don't want to be working here for the next 30 years and then regret not making a decision to make a change. So I actually made that change. And I think it's really important to actually follow your passion and create something for yourself.
And that's such a good segue to where I wanted to go, because you talk about making such a massive change from being a teacher to developing a real estate portfolio. And so you've written the book called Positively Geared. You're clearly a very positive guy. I'd like to talk about mindset a little bit. How do you develop the mindset to be able to make that shift, such a big shift, right? And believe that you can go out and you can create a real estate portfolio, and take the risk of leaving that full-time job and that, I guess, perceived security.
Yeah, so Ken, I think there's probably a few things there, but one of them is definitely education. So you do need to, I guess, be around other people who've had a bit of success. So, I did read a few books, and I did, attend a few seminars and things like that. But it also comes from having a bit of success. So, when I first started out, I probably didn't really know what I was doing, and the first couple of properties I bought were probably pretty slow and didn't do much. I've still got those properties, and I look back all these years later, and they've actually done quite well just by accident because I bought them in a good location. But at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. But I think when I did start to have some success with my some of my properties, and when I got into sort of property developing and stuff like that, that really inspired me to be able to do more. But one of the really big things that I found is really important is to really have a goal and know what you want to aim for, because that's where I always recommend to people, have a goal about what is your financial independence, what does it mean, or what are your lifestyle choices. Because if you've got a goal, and whether that's to create financial independence for yourself, or whether you want to look after your family, whether you want to even just get to the stage where only, if you've got yourself and a partner, and your partner, maybe you can have them at home, rather than you both working and stuff. That's financial independence to some people. Whatever you're aiming for, if you keep really focused on that, then that helps shift your mind to be really focused towards that. One of the things that I sometimes found a little bit difficult was obviously when I was working in this school and there was other teachers around that weren't doing any investing, and they sort of kept telling me, you should never invest, you'll never have any success with investing, as it's dangerous, and what if the property market crashes and all this. So there's all this negative stuff around you, and you've actually got to see through that noise, because for me that is just noise. When people are always going to be able to say negative things or believe negative things if that's what they want to believe. So you just got to see through that and just have a positive mindset, which is something that I've always had, and just have a goal in mind and then set a strategy on how to get to those goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you said a lot there. And a couple of things that stuck out to me. One is you're right. I think most people are negative in their day-to-day, the negative outlook. I think it's easy to be negative and to kind of just say, things are bad and complain all the time. It's much more difficult to be positive, right? And to see the bright side of things. And I think it can be tough for all of us in real estate, being surrounded by folks who don't really understand what you're doing or why you would want to do that, right? Again, we talked about the perception of safety of the 9 to 5, right? And a lot of people buy into that, and that's that's fine for them, but it's just difficult being surrounded by that and being told and questioned on what you're doing all the time. I think that's the importance, like we were talking about, of getting around like-minded people, getting around people that are doing the same things, whether it's going to a meetup, right? Or it's just engaging with people online. There's great Facebook groups now or things like that, or even listening to podcasts like this and hearing people that have done what you want to do, right? And have achieved that journey. I think that can be a big.
That's exactly right. And all of those things you've mentioned are really important, and even listen to podcasts and the great people you've had on this show and many other podcasts that I listen to. But even dating back years, I mean, there's take America for example. There's been some great inspiring people, such as even Earl Nightingale, which I still listen to his podcasts and stuff, because I find what he says is very inspiring, and he makes lots of sense, and even those sort of things inspire. But you're right, if you're getting around like-minded people, and then you sort of feed off each other, and that's what you want to do, because you need to be in a situation with people who are trying to do the same thing that you do. So one thing that I think is really important is that if you're going to get advice or seek out a mentor, you should be trying to do that from people who have actually done what you're trying to do. So get around other people who have achieved financial independence, for example. I always say also that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. So, it's really important that you are there and you're trying to learn, and you really want to be surrounding yourself with, some really smart people that you can actually learn from, and everything like that, because, that can be really inspiring. Because I find that, 95% of the people in the world are going to have sort of the same result as each other. People tend to follow each other, like sheep, and people are, like you refer to, that perceived security of the 9 to 5 job. Most people think like that. You don't want to be part of that 95%. You want to be part of the 5% of people that are trying for greater things, because those people who have created wealth and created lifestyle choices, they're not the people who work your 9 to 5 job, because you can't really create wealth like that. And even if you've got a very high paying job, there's still a limit to how much a job pays. But if you're building a property portfolio, then that's really limitless, because the growth in properties, if you're buying the right properties in the right locations, and the amount of cash flow you can get, that can keep growing as you keep building it. And there's no limit on that. Much more than just having a job. And I think that's a mindset that people don't actually realize.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think the other cool thing is it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? I mean, I know a lot of people that love their job. Maybe I know doctors and lawyers, professional services folks. I know people that are consultants that love what they do, but they recognize that can't be you can't only have a single source of income, right? So they start investing outside of that. They start investing passively, and they start creating multiple streams of income that give you that security, right? And that peace of mind that we talked about before. And ultimately it gives them the ability, like you said, lifestyle choices. So you have the ability to make that decision. So if you do begin to lose the passion, like you talked about, right? You have the choice, and you don't have to feel like you're stuck, right? So I think having that mindset, seeing beyond, like you said, what 95% of people do, and exploring additional streams of income to build out that portfolio and that security, I think is extremely important for folks to understand.
Absolutely, and you've really hit the nail on the head there, because when you refer to it's really about lifestyle choices. So if you're a doctor or a lawyer, or you could be a teacher or a nurse. It doesn't really matter, because people we need
Exactly.
all those people in society, and people love what they're doing. So I'm not sort of saying people should quit their job, but it's about having those lifestyle choices. What it essentially means that, for example, if you're a 30-year-old nurse and you love your job now, by the time you're 50, you may not love it as much, or you might want to have a sort of the choice to work part-time, or you might be then, maybe looking after kids or grandkids or all sorts of things. And it just gives you the choice that maybe instead of working 5 days a week, you can work 3 days a week, and you got income coming from your investments that'll help cover the rest of that time. So it's just giving you that, those lifestyle choices. So it doesn't mean everybody needs to go and quit their jobs, whatever. And obviously, people need jobs to be able to fund, if they're going to borrow money from banks to buy properties and stuff, they actually need to have jobs anyway to start the ball rolling. So certainly not saying everyone quit their job, but but I'm a big believer in creating lifestyle choices, and, like you say, creating several sources of income. Because if something does happen to your full-time job, what you really want to have is a cash flow positive portfolio that's passive income. So then you've still got that income coming in, even if something happens to your job.
Yeah, I think that's great perspective. And like you said, having the forethought and identifying your goals, and keeping your eye on the prize, if you will, to set up and establish that now, for understanding that your passions or your lifestyle choices may change over the next 20 years. So having that flexibility, right? So as people start to invest, and you brought something up to me called the property trifecta, and I think that's an important point for people to understand. So why don't you walk us through that?
Okay, so the property trifecta is something that I do that most people, certainly over here, don't. Generally, what people do is they either find a property that has good growth potential. So you basically buy a property, and it's over the long term, it's going to grow in value. But those sort of properties generally don't have a lot of rent, so they're probably going to be negative cash flow, not positive cash flow. Or they may go to various cities where they can actually get better cash flow, but not as good a growth on the properties. What I aim for is actually both. So you're actually going to get capital growth on your properties, and you're going to get good rental on your properties as well. So that's two of them. The third one is actually what I call instant equity, and that's actually where you're manufacturing growth. And this is one of the things that actually really kickstarted my portfolio, that allowed me to start working towards financial freedom. Now, to build instant equity, that's through manufacturing growth in, say, a property development or a subdivision. So you're actually you're getting your block of land or your property, and you're doing something with it that creates an extra block on it, or something that's actually going to add some value. Or you might have a house that you're going to do a renovation to, which increases the value. That's adding equity to it straight away without waiting for the market to move. So when I look for properties, I'm always looking for that trifecta, which is the instant equity, the capital growth potential, and also the cash flow potential, because you need that. The aim of the game is obviously to have that passive income. So you always want to have good cash flow coming out of each property.
I think that's great. And that's something that, especially that the adding value piece, I think is critical. That's something I look for as I'm investing, making sure that you're not just relying on the market, right? Making sure that you're able to, what I would call force appreciation,
Absolutely.
and make sure that there's that control, right? Because otherwise you're relying on the market, and you're relying on external forces. and getting to control your destiny. So yeah, I appreciate that trifecta. So talk to us a little bit more about your portfolio. How has from how you started to where you are now, how has it developed and evolved? And what are you focusing on nowadays?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was essentially just sort of buying properties, which were pretty much in Sydney to start with, and mostly well located, but not with any particular strategy. And they were mostly units or townhouses, that kind of stuff. But they didn't have really good cash flow on them. Also, because I'd sort of started buying just after the Sydney 2000 Olympics, which we had here in Sydney, we had a good property boom leading up to that, but just after that, the prices started to decline. And the worst time to really be buying property is when the market is actually in decline. You should be buying in a sort of a rising market. But of course, I didn't know that when I first started investing. So it all comes down to education and making sure you're buying in the right place at the right time. So a few little mistakes in that at the start. But as I got going, I really sort of started to get into, particularly, as you say, forcing that equity, manufacturing equity. And I remember the thing that really was my aha moment, which really kickstarted me, was when I built my first duplex. And when I had it subdivided and then got it revalued, the amount of additional equity I'd created there, which essentially means the difference in what it was worth to what it is now worth after I subdivided it. The profit in that was actually twice as much from that one project as what I was earning the whole year as a teacher at the time. And then I thought, I'm onto something here, because I'd just done this development project on the side, and I'd made, quite a lot of, I think I made about $141,000 profit on that particular property. That was my first attempt at a development, and that was twice as much as what I was earning as a teacher at the time. So, from there, it really kickstarted myself, and I just need to then start to, repeat the process and everything like that. So, since then, I've been very much into doing, small development projects like that, duplexes and things, and other ways of manufacturing equity too, which includes, subdivisions of blocks, sometimes selling off vacant land once I've created the subdivision, sometimes renovations. And also mixing it up across different cities and buying some in capital cities and some out sort of in the country across different states in Australia. So very much diversifying it, but always having that focus on how each property sets me up for the next property. So that's something that's very important that I always understand nowadays when I'm buying a property, what sort of result I'm aiming for, and then what I'm going to actually use that improved profit, that improved equity for, in my next property and so on. And I've been able to use a lot of the equity I've created from my investments to pay off some of the homes that we've lived in the past as well. So I've sort of been able to reduce a lot of debt on the homes that we've lived in by using the investments to do that.
Oh, that's very cool. So now you're focused primarily on development and developing. It sounds like smaller multifamily. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So essentially duplexes, triplexes. So essentially, two, three, maybe four if you're doing a quadplex. So just small multifamily type units, as you call them. Yeah.
Very cool. So Lloyd, it's been great having you on and fantastic conversation. I love hearing your journey. We have a section on the show, the last section called Keys to Success. And I want to get your thoughts on a few items. The first is, as we have a lot of the listeners on this show are passive investors, meaning they are folks that are looking to invest with others that have the experience and the time and want to go out and find the properties and push that appreciation and manufacture that equity like we talked about. What is the most important question that someone that's looking to make an investment can ask?
I think you really need to really understand why you're investing. That's the number one thing is what you're trying to achieve out of that. So there's no point just for me, the investment is just a vehicle itself. So whether you're buying property or whether you're doing shares or something else, that's just a vehicle. So it's really immaterial as the actual investment itself. That's a vehicle on how you're going to get there. So you need to understand what the goal is. Now, whether your goal is, through one investment, whether that's to create, some income or some equity to pay off some other debt, or over the long term, if it's for that financial independence, you really have to have in place an understanding of what you're trying to achieve, and then probably get some advice on whether property is the best thing to achieve that, or whether you want to go into the stock market, or whether you want to do a mixture of both and things like that. So because they're all just investment vehicles, so you really need to have an understanding of what you're trying to achieve and how that's going to help you.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic key to success. And I love how it all keeps coming back to goals and strategy, right? It all comes back to understanding what your goals are, what you want to achieve, and then working a strategy on how to get there and staying true to that. So appreciate that consistency. What book should everyone read?
Well, I think people should read my book, Positively Geared.
Of course.
Because that's something I've just released. It's available through Amazon, so and a few other places, but I think Amazon worldwide is good. That one I've put out there basically just to really get my message out there, to sort of show people a bit of my, well, pretty much my whole story, but to sort of inspire people that, if I can do it, so can other people. And it's not just a property investing book, but it's really a journey on how I got to where I started from to where I am now. And there's lots of case studies in there and information in there. So that should be a pretty enjoyable read. But apart from that, there's some other books that I think I'd recommend people to read. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed, which I've read a few times, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and probably some of his other books too, like the Cash Flow Quadrant and things like that. So I think those books are very worthwhile reading as well.
Great. And then last but not least, what's your number one key to success?
My number one key to success is passion. Just have belief in yourself and have passion.
I love
that. You're not going to achieve anything unless you're actually passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're passionate about it and you can find a way to get there, then you can pretty much achieve anything you want.
Yeah, I love that. I think you have to have the passion to push through the tough times, right? And where does the passion come from? The passion comes from understanding why you're doing it, right? So it goes back again to goals and your strategy. You've got to understand your why. That's the thing that's going to give you that passion to be able to push through when times are hard and things don't go the way you want, right?
Yeah, you do have to understand your why. I actually wrote a whole chapter about that in my book, and that's why it's really important. And I say know your why, because you really do need to understand that. Because like anything, investing, I've made mistakes along the way, and sometimes things don't go so well, and sometimes the market doesn't go so well, or we have a pandemic and we're worried about things and whatever. But you need to look at the bigger picture. Whatever happens now or in 6 months' time is irrelevant to what's going to happen in your life in 10 years' time if you stick to your goals. So you really need to have belief and just look at that long-term goal and try to keep yourself accountable and not get off track and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really powerful stuff, Lloyd. And so how can folks get a hold of you and reach out if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so probably just jump on my website, which is ozpropertyprofessionals.com.au. And they can reach me on, they can send me an email as well, which is lloyd@ozpropertyprofessionals.com.au. And if they get hold of my book, those details are in the back of the book as well. So, but be happy to chat with anyone and give anyone any sort of advice that they might like.
That's great. And the book is Positively Geared and it's available on Amazon, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Lloyd, so much today. It's been a fantastic conversation. And I look forward to staying in touch and hearing as you continue to grow.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Have a good one.